Welcome back once again to another edition of Viper Bytes, and we're getting freaky once more with our Sunday night football preview. Call this prime time at the movies. We are going Buccaneers, Patriots, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2. With that being said, let's take a look at the injuries going into this game. First off, news dropped today, Saturday, that Rob Gronkowski will not be making the return to Foxborough with Tom Brady. He's been ruled out with that rib injury, which really sucks because a lot of my notes were about him returning to Foxborough with Brady, but we'll improvise as the show goes along. Also out is Jamal Dean with the knee. Giovanni Bernard has a knee injury. Jason Pierre-Paul also dealing with a shoulder, and Scotty Miller, toe injury. He's on the IR. For the Patriots, the only significant injury that has come out so far is James White, running back there. He is on the IR with that hip injury, which means we are going to see maybe more Brandon Bolden. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, in any good movie, it's a soundtrack that really sets the tone. The Patriots won Super Bowls with Brady in 02, 04, 05, and then again in 2015, 2017, 2019. Brady added another with the Bucs in 2020, which means that's a pretty impressive soundtrack for this reunion tour. That said, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is not to be outdone. You had Mr. Blue Sky, a little ELO, a little Fox on the Run by Sweet. That was only in the trailers, though. Lakeshore Drive. You had The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. You had Bring It Home to Me by Sam Cooke. Southern Nights, Glenn Campbell stepped in. My Sweet Lord, George Harrison. Brandy, Looking Glass. We'll talk about that one a little bit, maybe. Come a little bit closer. Jay and the Americans. Wham Bam, Schlang-a-Lang. Silver, Surrender, Cheap Trick, Father and Son, Cat Stevens, and Flashlight Parliament. Now, that truly was the awesome mix, too, that went into Guardians of the Galaxy. So you've got a little bit of a background. We've got Super Bowls for Brady in New England. We've got that killer soundtrack there in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. You know we're setting the tone for this matchup. Now, what it comes down to, finally, the prodigal son has returned to Foxborough. Tom Brady played for the Patriots and Bill Belichek for 20 seasons, winning 6 Super Bowls, making 8 appearances. Now, we've had this game circled on our calendar since the NFL released its schedule. We've debated who is more responsible for these championships more times than I care to count right now. Brady went to Tampa Bay, added another one to his collection, and he faces his, let's call it football father in Bill Belichek. Now, Tom Brady is the story of the week in the NFL. He's 68 yards away from the NFL's all-time passing leader. Thanks, Drew Brees, for retiring, opening the door to Tom Brady, sliding right on in there. And he'll do it in his first game back against New England, as he's posted between 28.7 and 30.7 fantasy points in each of his first 3 games. But he had a little bit of a streak snap there after 13 games with multiple touchdown passes, including the postseason last week there against the LA Rams. Now, you better believe Bill Belichick will have his defense ready. While they haven't been overly tested early on so far, they've given up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks at 15.5. But let's be honest here. You're talking about Tua, you're talking about Zach Wilson, and you're talking about Jameis Winston all being those quarterbacks that have factored into that equation. Not exactly Tom Brady-esque, if you know what I'm saying. So back in 2000, Belichick kind of drafted this Brady kid. You know, he looked kind of like Mac Jones, you know, a little soft around the midsection there, not overly fast. He didn't even have the pedigree that Mac Jones had coming out of Alabama when Tom Brady came out of Michigan. But there was this unbreakable bond with him that was kind of taught to get your mind in the center of the NFL and how to concentrate, shape that energy and control it. Bill Belichick was teaching Tom Brady this early on in his career. And you know what? Maybe they even played a little catch. You know the scene I'm talking about in Guardians of the Galaxy there where Ego and Peter Quill, they're playing a little catch. He's kind of training him how to harness that energy. But you know what? It's kind of true as we preview this week's Sunday Night Football matchup right now. So picture this now. Let's go back to that scene that we just talked about. And I'm going to kind of quote this. I got it written down here, so excuse me if I kind of don't speak properly here. But Peter Quill kind of starts and goes, well, you may be mortal, but me, Eagle goes, no, Peter, death will remain a stranger to both of us as long as the light burns within the planet. Now, picture Peter as Tom Brady, and Eagle, fitting enough, Bill Belichek here. Peter, I'm immortal? Eagle, mm-hmm. Peter, really? Eagle, yes, as long as the light exists. Peter Quill goes, and I could use the light to build cool things, how you made this whole planet, how you made this whole organization there. He goes, well, it might take you a few million years of practice, but before you'll get really good at it. And then Tom Brady kind of goes, what? This is, well, get ready for an 800-foot statue of Pac-Man with Skeletor and Giselle. Well, he said Heather Locklear, but I kind of threw Giselle in there just for fun. And Eagle goes, you can do anything you want. And Brady goes, I'm going to make some weird crap. So you can pitch this whole conversation going down between these two when Brady took over for Bledsoe all those years ago. And are we really convinced that Bill Belichick isn't a celestial, or Brady for that matter? No one at that age plays this well for that long. Let's be honest. And in completely unrelated news, it's kind of funny to think of Brady being Peter Quill and Gamora kind of being maybe Julian Edelman, and having Brady explain the legend of Footloose to Julian Edelman. Just a little extra to think about. Now, when we look at this now, Brady accomplished plenty with his cast of teammates over the years in New England, found success with lesser-known castmates. We could talk about how Edelman is a Hall of Famer, or Welker is a Hall of Fame candidate. But before Brady, they were really not household names. Throw in Amendola, Gronk, Corey Dillon, who came over from Cincinnati, Randy Moss, who looked like he was done when he was there with the Raiders. The list goes on and on. We're talking 20 years of Patriots Brady history here. Without Brady, I think we can all agree the Patriots aren't the same franchise. None of the players mentioned have the same impact. Outside of the Guardians, we don't talk much about Gamora or Rocket or Groot or Drax for that matter. And we sure don't talk about Mantis. Now, but we all can agree they found a connection with each and every one of them, especially Gamora, a.k.a. Edelman, Gronk, a.k.a. Drax. Remember, Drax did come with Quill to the planet with him to go face Eagle or hang out with him. Now, unfortunately, Gronk's not making that trip here, so it kind of makes a little mess out of my notes here, but we're going to pretend he's still traveling. Now, like I mentioned, Gronk was returning home as well. Unfortunately, he's not making that trip. He's kind of getting left on that planet back there with Rocket and whatnot in this situation here where Rocket's actually going. You're going to have to follow me around. I'm kind of jumping over the place here with the storyline and the football game here. But last week, Gronk, he had a good game. He had those 4 catches of 55 yards, and then he took that shot in the ribs that's going to keep him out of tonight's game. And that kind of limited him to that 62% snap count there. So we know Gronk's not in there. Cameron Brate, you're kind of have to fill that role. You're going to have to step up as that tight end for the Buccaneers in this matchup. And you may have opportunity to do so because we know how Bill Belichick likes to operate this defense and take away the best weapons. That's one less weapon that he needs to concern himself in this matchup. Now, another homecoming of sorts is Antonio Brown. Back in 2019, Brown played 1 game for the Patriots before Kraft decided it wasn't going to work out. Now, Brown missed last week, but in week 2, he had 1 catch for 17 yards after having that big week 1, 5 catches, 121, and a touchdown with a 65% snap share. Now, consider Antonio Brown as Rocket Raccoon. Both of them have a little bit of a craziness to them, a little bit or a bit maybe misunderstood. They both have huge chips on their shoulder. You see Rocket, he's got this huge chip on his shoulder all the time. Being considered vermin, being considered a cat, being considered a rat, whatever it was, no one seemed to know he was a raccoon. Now, Brown has a huge payback opportunity, and I think Brown, much like Rocket there, he's going to take full advantage of this opportunity. Now, you can't have the Guardians without Groot. I mean, based on size, Groot or Groot's kid in Guardians 2 is more AB based on the diminutive size, but he is still a Flora Colossi, a tree-like being, which sounds more like Mike Evans. Doesn't say much about the other. Mike Evans doesn't really say much on the field. He's not much of a trash talker. Maybe he goes like, throw me ball. I am Groot. I don't know what the conversation is like, but I'm picturing it like this in my head right now. Now, Mike Evans is just fine with 13 catches, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks after managing about 3 catches for 24 yards when he faced Trevon Diggs there in week 1. So he's been heating up the last 2 weeks. Brady and him have been getting it going on here. Mike Evans, a.k.a. Baby Groot, is starting to grow into his own. Now, we know how this is going to work out. Now, TB12 is back, spreading that ball around the field. Evans has got about that 19% target share. Godwin is right there with 1 more target through 3 games. So you know Godwin's being used. Can we call Godwin maybe Yondu? I'm really stretching out here. I'm really reaching for names and comparisons at this point. But Godwin was kind of there to welcome Tom to Tampa Bay. Gronk wasn't there yet. Brady kind of came over there after maybe San Francisco didn't want him for whatever reason. But that's for another video later. But Godwin was there. And you know what? He's kind of made it difficult on Brady at times too because he's always injured. He's not always there. He's not always able to get in the lineup. And for me, that's kind of a little bit of a comparison. Like Yondu, you know, he was kind of Peter's father figure away from ego, but he wasn't kind of always there throughout a lot of Peter's life there in space after leaving Earth to wherever they went. Now, we take a look at this a little bit deeper. You know what? Maybe learning the ropes and tap. Maybe that's more of a Bruce Arians father figure thing to Brady. Anyway, getting myself a little bit more off track here. Godwin has been the most consistent Bucs receiver in the early going. 4+ catches, 60+ yards, 16+ fantasy points in every game thus far. The Patriots are just giving up about 10 catches, 131, and less than a touchdown receiving to wide receivers through 3 weeks. So that's something to keep an eye on that matchup. But again, not all stats are created equal. We've seen the wide receivers that the Patriots have faced. They faced that Dolphins team without Fuller. They faced Saints team that basically Marquez Callaway was the top receiver option on that team. They faced the Jets with Corey Davis, who I love, but you know he's not an upper echelon receiver. He's not a Mike Evans. He's not a Chris Godwin, for that matter. So let's kind of take a little bit more of a look into that. But when we look at the running game, forget about it. You know, you got Fournette, you got Ronald Jones, you got Gio Bernard, who's also hurt. They're kind of like the Ravengers when it comes to Guardians of Galaxy 2. Don't really play much of a role, but do entertain us for short periods of time. Now, Mac Jones, and let's throw in Cam Newton in there just for whatever reason. They are kind of like the others prior to Quill coming. If you remember, down in kind of that little bit of a gully there, that in the cave, there was all the others prior to Star-Lord coming there. Before Eagle found Peter, there was many others prior to that. Now, we know that with Brady gone, Belichek has been trying to find that successor to him for a few years now. Mac Jones has seen his yards per attempt fall in each of the 3 weeks from 7.2 to 6.2 to 5.3. Where it goes from here, we don't know. And now he sees more interceptions with 3 and TDs 2 after throwing his first picks against the Saints in week 3. The Buccaneers secondary is giving up a league high 338.3 passing yards per game after Matt Stafford lit him up for 373 and 4 touchdowns. So there's going to be an opportunity here for Mac Jones, if he's got the time to get the ball out of his hands, to find these receivers downfield. So I think Mac Jones and the Patriots, with Bill Belichick scheming a little something on the side, I think they can make this game a little bit closer than a lot of us are maybe anticipating at this point. Now, you don't hear much characters on Eagles Planet. So Bill Belichick, we don't really hear about the Patriots players. You know, we knew about James White, but he's gone down with injury. We don't hear it anyone other than maybe Jacoby Myers, Damien Harris right now. So sure, there's Mantis, who he's basically held captive against her will for X amount of time. But, you know, we look at these cast members, throwing maybe Nelson Aguilar, they're throwing maybe Kendrick Bourne in the passing game. Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry haven't quite lived up to the expectations thus far. The aforementioned Damien Harris, he's been good in short periods of time. Now maybe with James White being out of the lineup, he's got more of an opportunity to step up, maybe more of a 3-down role type thing going forward. But they used Brandon Bolden in that role. They've used J.J. Taylor in the preseason, kind of fill that James White type role. A lot of us, including myself, believe J.J. Taylor could be the next James White when it comes to the Patriots. And then you've still got Ramondre Stevenson sitting there waiting for that opportunity, maybe that LeGarrette Blount type role. Now, if there is that one secondary cast member, we talk about Mantis, we talk about the Ravagers. If there's that one secondary cast member who could steal the show, it's Jacoby Myers for me. Let's call him taser face. Now, I don't think I'm reaching here too much, but last week he had 9 catches, 94 yards on 14 targets. You know Mac Jones is looking for him. They've got this little bit of a connection going. And Cooper Kupp also had about 9 catches, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns against this very same Tampa Bay defense. And they both play out of the slot. So let's take a little bit deeper in here. When we look at it, he's seen, when I say he, I'm talking about Jacoby Myers, has seen at least a 20% target share or better in each week. He draws Ross Cockrell, who's given up a healthy 1.46 yards in the slot average snap there since Sean Murphy Bunting has been out of play. So you know how I feel about him. I love this guy. He's starting to get hot. Now he just has to find the end zone. He's got to find a way to score. That's been the biggest drawback. I think he finds that end zone this week. Now, Damien Harris, a lot of people have him on your sit list right now. I get it. Damien Harris draws another tough matchup after posting just 6 carries and 14 yards with a negative game script against the Saints. The Buccaneers are giving up 3.2 yards per carry and the 7th fewest rushing yards per game at 57.3 to running backs. Not ideal for Damien Harris to get going this week. But really, if the Patriots want to give the Buccaneers team a little bit of a run, they got to be able to run the ball. So I expect to see more than 6 attempts here for Damien Harris in this week 4 Sunday Night Football tilt. Jonah Smith, he's run a route on just 49 of 136 passing plays this year. Meanwhile, Hunter Henry has been involved 88 times over 136 passing plays. The Buccaneers, on the other end, have given up 10-plus fantasy points in 3 straight games. And we're talking here Tyler Higbee, 540 and 1. Kyle Pitts, 5 catches, 73 yards. Dalton Schultz got in there with 6 catches and 45. So there is an opportunity for one of these tight ends to step up. I want it to be Jonah Smith. I really thought at the beginning of the season it would be Jonah Smith, but I'm leaning more towards Hunter Henry now just because he's getting almost twice as many routes in each game here per passing play. So he's got the better opportunity, more likely to have that hit for the Patriots tight ends. Anyway, back to this whole Brady and Belichek thing, back to the Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyway, Brady bought into what Belichek had going on. They were going to take over the universe in the NFL, and they really did. They had basically 2 separate dynasties, which was absolutely unheard of, and make it their own. This league is theirs. Everything was theirs. The most wins among a quarterback and coach combined belongs to Belichick and Brady. And that's the kind of success that New England fans have expected for years. They're fortunate enough to have this opportunity, have this star lord, so to speak, with them. Now, Brady did whatever was necessary to keep this thing going for years, restructuring his contract for team-friendly deals for the betterment of the team before wising up. There's that scene then in Guardians where Eagle holds Peter Quill captive, basically using him as a battery before Peter breaks free, and turns into a big giant Pac-Man. But it's coming down to us as a casual fan to see Brady finally put an end to Belichick and prove it. It was Brady, not Belichick, that helped the Patriots win all these titles all these years. Pac-Man Brady, look out, Belichick. Here he comes. At the end of the day, or the film, or the era, it was the Guardians and the cast of heroes that assembled that took down Eagle. Sure, Star-Lord, he kind of had the little head-to-head with them, but each of the Guardians played a significant role. While Belichick has a losing record since Brady had left, Brady continues to win Super Bowls. True that both teams are trending in opposite directions here. Belichick is trying to rebuild. Brady's on a Super Bowl contending team year after year. Belichick's got a new young quarterback that he hopes will be the successor, the heir apparent to Brady. And so are Patriots fans. They're really hoping that Mac Jones is the real deal. Now, we know that we feel it's going to be a pretty one-sided adventure, one-sided game. The Bucs have the weapons. The Bucs have the better defense. The Bucs have this. The Bucs have that. The Bucs have Brady for it all when it all comes down to it. But Belichick, he's going to have something up his sleeve. One last shot here. And you know what? Games aren't played on paper. They're not played on the script. They're not even played on a big giant movie theater. Well, maybe some Super Bowls might be, but that's not here nor there. Now, this game cries out to be Bucs over Patriots in a big way. But we've seen weirder things happen. Heck, I'm still waiting on Adam Warlock to get introduced post-credits in this game. with that all said, you know what? Fire up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fire up them on the point spread. You know what? I think we're going to hit the over on this because I think the Patriots offense is going to get going. I think the passing attack is going to get open. And I think you can move the ball through the air against this banged up Buccaneers secondary. So these are kind of the things you need to be paying attention to here as we head into Sunday Night Football preview here. And you know what? Guardians of the Galaxy, Sunday Night Football, Brady Belichek. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Till next time, I'll see you Monday night when we talk Raiders and Chargers. And make sure you catch us on dynastyvipers.com and head over to the Vipers Network YouTube channel for more videos just like this.